The author of that bill, North Carolina Congressman Richard Hudson, goes on the record with us this evening. Congressman, welcome. Good to have you here.
Great to be with you.
So, how does that feel for you when you hear the president say that you're basically just afraid of some widows and some orphans and that you have no compassion?
Well, it's disappointing to hear the president politicize this issue like that. But this is a common rhetorical device he uses where he sets up a straw man, some fake person who said some wild statement, and then he contradicts it. But the truth is, no one is saying block any religious group. No one's saying block all refugees. All we're saying in the House is let's stop this process, because your own FBI director has said we can't do proper background checks on most of these Syrian refugees.
You know, I think a lot of people listen to this argument and they just think that it's reasonable to sort of tap the brakes a little bit and to take some time on this. What's your sense for how fast the White House wants to move on this and what their reaction is going to be to your bill?
Well, I'm hopeful that the president will come around. We're going to have a vote tomorrow on this legislation. Very common sense legislation. Just says let's simply stop the flow of these refugees unless and until the FBI director can put a background process in place that he's confident of, and then the Secretary of Homeland Security can verify that these refugees are not a threat. Pretty straightforward. The president issuing the veto threat just shows he's out of step with the American people. The American people want to know, especially in light of ISIS coming out and saying they're going to use this refugee crisis to infiltrate America. Yeah. Well, I believe them. And so let's make sure we've got a process in place to protect the American people.
There's an interesting piece in the National Review by Andrew McCarthy that says that there is indeed a religious test, actually, for people who are refugees and people who are seeking a safe haven. They have to prove that they have been persecuted, that they're seeking that safe haven for a reason. And clearly, Christians have been persecuted. Muslims have been killed in greater numbers than anyone else, really, in this region. But the discussion about your religion and why you are seeking some safe haven is part of the process, is it not?
Well, the president's just making this up. No one is saying that we ought to block folks based on their religion or give preference to folks based on their religion. All we're saying is let's put a vetting process in place that the experts, this isn't Richard Hudson saying this. This is the FBI director appointed by President Obama saying that the process is broken. We can't properly vet these refugees.
Yeah. It looks like the FBI director and the president are sometimes on different pages with this. What do you think about that?
Well, the president's also on the different page than the American people, because I live in Concord, North Carolina, and I go home every weekend. And this weekend, people, not just Republicans but Democrats, folks I ran into all over town, are worried about these refugees, and they want to know why can't we get a process in place to vet them or don't allow them in. And that's what our legislation does.
It's raising a lot of questions about why we didn't help them more in their homeland. I'm sure they would have their preference would be to stay in their village where their people have lived for centuries, but that was not to be, given presence in those areas. Sir, thank you very much. Good to have you with us tonight. Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.